Alabama lawmakers save our state by funding affordable housing and public transportation? This is an opinion column. The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Matthew 24:40. Oh, there'll be some foolishness, some petty pandering for political points that won't really count for anything. Not anything that improves Alabamians' lives, that benefits the citizenry, that helps us. There always is when the Alabama legislature gathers in Montgomery, this year earlier than usual because it's an election year and folks need to get back to their districts and hit the streets so early. Many of y'all won't have your Christmas decorations down and packed away before the circus comes to town next week. Read more. How will Alabama spend $1.5 billion in COVID relief funds? Advocates say Housing Trust Fund could help address homelessness. Alabama lawmakers face decisions on federal COVID funds, pistol permits in 22. There's a pre-filed bill touting the right not to send our children to school in a protective mask, even as Omicron is rolling through the state faster than a deadly storm front, one making it legal to carry a pistol without a permit, even though it's illegal to drive a car without one, and another banning schools and universities in the state from teaching critical race theory, a legal construct not taught in any of the state's K-12 schools, or anything that makes kids feel bad. The latter bill raised the ire of education profs at the University of Alabama. In a letter sent this summer to other higher education officials in the state, UA's Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee said the restrictions curtail academic freedom and further back our state, students, families, and educators. Foolishness, if I may translate, that does not improve Alabamians' lives. Not at all. If there's any grace in this session, the foolishness will be squashed by the supermarket sweep-like spending spree as legislators divvy up the last bit of change from the first half of the $2.12 billion the state received last June, part of its allocation from President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan. Of the $1.5 billion in the bank, $80 million is already allocated to aid our ailing hospitals and nursing homes, and, of course, a ghastly $400 million was tabbed to build 2 prisons which still won't rescue an abhorrent system the U.S. Department of Justice deemed in violation of the Constitution. Like the unexpected manna from Washington D.C. filling state, county, and city coffers throughout the nation this year, and in a few months when the second half of the money is slated to arrive, the funds offer Alabama an unprecedented opportunity to, well, stop being Alabama, to stop prioritizing petulant partisanship over people, to stop ignoring areas of dire need, areas unaddressed for far too long, areas deflating the lives of residents throughout our state, too long neglected residents in impoverished rural areas and strained neighborhoods in our largest cities, residents mostly afflicted by the lot and lottery of their birthplace, not personal failings or flaws, residents Jesus embraced as the least of these among these brothers and sisters of mine. Their needs are many, and there seems to be a will, a bipartisan will, even, to finally address some of them, like closing the digital divide and ensuring every home in the state has quality internet, along with the tools and skills to use them correctly, like upgrading antiquated water and sewer systems that have half Alabamians in the Black Belt living with raw sewage flowing into their yards. 2 significant statewide needs, however, don't seem to have yet caught the eye or heart of legislators: affordable housing and public transportation. I was frankly stunned last month upon reading that Alabama's Housing Trust Fund, created by the legislature in 2012 to address the egregious across-the-state need for affordable housing, has a balance of 0, according to AL.com colleague Sarah Whites-Koditschek's comprehensive reporting. Not a penny. States and cities nationwide utilize housing trust funds to fill affordable housing needs and homelessness, particularly in rural areas not covered by federal funds generally aimed at large cities. The state of Ohio plunked $55 million, drawn from a tax on mortgage recording fees, in its state housing fund in 2021 and allots half of it to support affordable housing options in rural parts of the state. In Washington, the housing fund has built 55,000 units since being created in 1986. Last year, the state's capital fund budget allocated $175 million to the fund, along with an additional $120 million for what's called a rapid housing acquisition program. 2 years ago, a bill that would have tweaked mortgage recording fees to feed the housing fund died with little more than a whimper. It would have deposited $15 million in the fund, according to Whites-Koditschek, that year, presumably more thereafter, and jumpstart an effort to improve Alabamians' lives. Instead, it lies empty as about 3,351 Alabamians are likely homeless today, according to the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, and 1 in 3 renters in the state, low-income renters, is burdened by a shortage of more than 73,000 affordable housing units in Alabama. Legislators fund the housing fund with at least $30 million from the first half of the state's overall allocation and at least $30 million from the second half, and in the meantime pass a bill that offers a sustainable funding solution and elevates the lives of Alabamians you've too long ignored, just as you've ignored the myriad Alabamians who depend on some form of public transportation simply to live, to get to work, to see a doctor, to visit loved ones, and dismiss the proven economic upside of investing in public transportation, a 5-to-1 return in transportation efficiency and fuel usage, job growth, and peripheral development in conjunction with key routes and stops, according to the American Public Transportation Association. The number of states that do not provide state funding for public transportation may be counted on 3 fingers, and, of course, one of them points directly to us. It is long past time for that to change. 3 years ago, legislators created the Public Transportation Trust Fund, yet it remains another account into which no state dollars have been deposited. The $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill Biden signed into law late last year contains an appropriation of approximately $402 million over 5 years to elevate public transportation throughout the state. That's $80 million annually, an amount that should be the minimum of ARP dollars we commit while, again, creating a plan for sustained investment. Charlotte Shaw, Executive Director and CEO of the Birmingham Jefferson County Transit Authority, says state funding of public transportation is imperative in order for Alabama to continue to access federal dollars beyond the infrastructure bill. After the money goes away, there has to be a way to sustain what has been rebuilt, she says. Transit can sustain green emissions and the infrastructure of our cities, but not without state funding, could ensure its workforce by paying frontline workers competitive wages and benefits. Compare states that and you will see the difference. The various modes, including rail and microtransit. Old ways will eventually make this state a ghost town. This train is still languishing at the station, legislators. It's time to get on board. Senate Finance and Taxation General Fund Chairman Greg Albritton, Atmore, said recently, "I want this money to be invested in the future, not paying for the past. I want this money to go into matters that will make a difference for the next generation." Few things matter more to brothers and sisters of any generation than being able to live affordably and move about comfortably and efficiently. To ignore those needs now, while flush with the resources to finally address them, would be the greatest foolishness of all. More columns by Roy S. Johnson. Districts whose representatives didn't vote for infrastructure bill shouldn't get the money. Don't merely delay third-grade holdback, scrap it for something better. After 66 years, Claudette Colvin's egregious assault conviction is expunged. Finally, after commanding inauguration, Karima Moore seeks to become voice for a generation. Roy S. Johnson is a 2021 Pulitzer Prize finalist for commentary and winner of 2021 Edward R. Murrow Prize for podcasts, Unjustifiable, co-hosted with John Archibald. His column appears in the Birmingham News and AL.com, as well as the Huntsville Times, the Mobile Press Register. Reach him at rojohnson@al.com, follow him at twitter.com/Royce, or on Instagram at Royce.